All right, let's go.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Typical Skeptic Podcast. I have a fascinating guest with me on the phone. I have with me the mother of Max Spiers, and I also have with me my friend Nate from Voices of Orion Project. You've seen Nate. We do many podcasts together. Nate's a survivor of the program, similar to how Vanessa's son, Max, the great Max Spiers, that we all know and love. Well, I didn't know him, but we all love his work. And basically, we're going to be talking to Vanessa today about the life of Max and kind of paying honor to what he did for our community. And with all that said, I want to thank Vanessa for coming on. Vanessa, thank you so much for coming on. And we really loved your son. He was a great asset to our community. And yeah, just thank you for coming on. How are you today?
I'm fine. The question that Nate asked was massive, as he well knows.
Wait, Nate, do you want to re-ask that question so that the audience can hear it?
Well, she didn't want to answer it. I understand that. Is it? I mean,
no,
so
no. I will answer it, but it's a big question, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I can. So if you want me to go ahead and ask it, I was hoping to save it for later, but if you want to do it now, we can get the big one out of the way.
Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you, Vanessa. What I wanted to say is that yeah, I've been going through this myself. I'm in the first year of recovery and just trying to get through this. And I know it causes depression. I've had post-traumatic stress disorder. I've had a lot of things, and I know that Max had to have had these things too. And the question I really had is that some of us, and I have a friend who's been going through the same thing or something similar to me. He turned to alcohol. It really destroyed his life. And Max was known for self-medicating, which happens to a lot of us, especially when we get really depressed. I was just wondering if there's something in the community that we could do, collectively to help people who fall into that really horrible place to be in, that really deep depression. What do you think we could do as a community? And my opinion is that I think we need to do more networking, and we need to support each other. And I think we need, if there's some way to get members from the professional therapeutic counseling community to help us. We just don't have any resources, and we're like a pariah. We're considered mentally ill. What do you think? Is there something that we could do? And what would that be? And if you had a magic wand, what would you change?
I'm not laughing at you, Nate.
I understand.
I have been through it with him. He was the most beautiful boy. Always had that side to him that was questioning things from when he was 5 or 6. So there was that element to him, and quite possibly that was true for you. Once the addiction grabbed him, he fought it like a tiger. He hated it. He cried with me and said, "Mom, I do not want this." But it was very hard. He did a year in Cry Help, 1 whole year. That's in LA. What can we do? We can stop putting people in jail and understand that the addiction is the product of an underlying issue that needs help. Nate, that's as best as I can go in this short time.
Yeah, I agree, Mrs. Bates. I have a lot of friends that have dealt with addiction, and it's prevalent in our community. Let me ask you this though: do you think that there was like foul play in Max's death? I have to ask this question because
yes.
Like,
Vanessa, I just have, sorry to interrupt, Rob. I just have a question. It's unclear for a lot of us as to what caused your son to pass. And I was wondering if you could maybe share that with us and then go on to Rob's question, because you know, there's just a lot of questions there. And when they do take one of us out, this is the problem that the rest of us are left with is we have a big question
Let
mark.
me
As to
make
was it
this.
a normal
Name,
situation?
let me make this very clear.
Okay.
He had addiction issues with heroin, no doubt. For the year and a half that he was here in Canterbury, England, with me, he was clean. He got into a program, and every week he tested, and I tested him here at home by his choice. So he was clean, which was hard for him. Somebody, naming names is kind of dodgy because I've been threatened with lawsuits, but there were certain individuals that I am sure you know their names, invited him to Poland because he was beginning to make a name for himself. So he went, and there began the journey of his death within 3 weeks, 4 weeks. They did not want him. He started to have some sort of strength. There was a following. He was young. He spoke well. And yes, there was a conspiracy. I have no doubt.
Miss Spates, I wanted to ask you, Max mentioned in a documentary that 2008 was very significant. Did he ever mention anything to you about that?
Oh my God, did he just?
What happened in 2008?
It was almost as if it was a dawning. I was working, you may or may not know, but I'm a high school principal. What I do. Anyway, so with disturbed kids. So Max turned up at the door of my school in Los Angeles and said, Mom, I would have been probably, I don't know how old, 32, something like that. And I absolutely adored him and stopped and went and had a cup of coffee. And he said, I have had the most extraordinary experience of my life. And he described a game that he used to play as a child called Mousetrap. I don't even know the game, but it's about trying to escape from being caught with the cheese. And it was so vivid that night, when he was living in his own apartment, he got up in the night and started looking through the windows of people that he didn't know in his neighborhood in San Fernando Valley. And one man came out and thought he was, I don't know if you call it a peeping Tom in LA, but somebody who was snooping. All he was doing was looking as a way out of the mousetrap. But the man came out and punched the living daylights out of Max. And Max was, as you probably know, very strong. But he didn't expect that, and he was flattened. They took him to a psychiatric ward, and within 2 days, they declared that it wasn't anything psychiatric and released him. But the dawning, what you're asking about is the 2008, he suddenly realized that he was here for a purpose, and his purpose was to try and help those he could get out of the mousetrap.
That makes me think that he was trying to get people out of the matrix, or what we call the matrix, like
there you go.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this. What do you think? I don't know if he ever expressed this to you, but like, what do you think Max was onto before he died? I mean, do you know what he was researching, or like, do you know what he might have been?
Totally. I've got the paperwork before he went to Poland. Remember, from leaving me here, it was only about 3 weeks when I got a text saying he had died. I came in and I got this text. He was researching a lot of child, not pornography, child abuse.
Trafficking.
Yes, there you go. That's it. Yes. Yes, and he has a lot of writing about it and a lot of names. And I have the notes. He was a writer more than he was almost a computer. But then the woman that I believe was at the bottom of the demise of Max, sent me the computer back because I said I want his computer, and there was nothing on it at all. And yet before he left, he had loads of, he was communicating with a guy called Stuart Swerdlow. This I know for a fact, and everything was wiped. So there was a conspiracy going on. It sounds like a stupid word, but that was the case.
Well, no, a lot of times conspiracy can be reality, and they just like the government likes to call it conspiracy because that's what they like to think of us conspiracy theorists. But it's more of a conspiracy reality, is what, or I call it reality because it's more of a reality than a conspiracy. Nate, did you have a question, or did you want to follow up on any of that?
I just wanted to give her a compliment. Vanessa, for a lot of people like us, when we go to our parents or mother or father, friends and family, they don't know how to relate to us. They instantly think we're mentally ill, we're looking for attention. And I just wanted to say that Max was very blessed to have you in his life, because you seem to be connected to what he was going through at the level he needed you to be. And I think that's very commendable. It shows you how much you love your son.
Oh my God. There, you couldn't even question me on that one. He was my world. But in terms of addiction, and this is where I do get frustrated, and perhaps this is one of the most important points, is that at one point Max said to me, because we spoke a lot. We were very close. He said, Mom, some of the best people that I have ever known have come through or are suffering addiction. So he was not tolerant of that, wipe it all out. Oh, he's an addict. He talks shit. But Max was something else. But then I'm his mom.
Well, they like to the society and mainstream society in general likes to try to discredit people who are addicts. But like some of the best people in the world have been addicts, like some of the most intuitive and
bless you.
Yeah, people have been addicts. I mean, I think everybody has vices, and
yes.
let me ask you this. I wanted to ask about Max's childhood. Did he because I watched that documentary that was on the BBC that's on YouTube, and that was really good, but they came from it from a non-conspiracy aspect, whereas we look at everything more open-minded here. Did Max ever talk about like having like UFO sightings as a kid, or did he ever talk about being abducted as a kid, like by aliens or anything like that?
His grandfather, who was Percy Herbert, who you could look up easily online, was a very famous actor. Doesn't matter about the fact he was a famous actor, it's just that you can look him up. Max was his grandson, and they were very close. Now, my father was very into UFOs. So Max, age about 6, 7, used to look out of the window with my dad's binoculars, his granddad's, and they would see UFOs. No question about it. So yeah, Max was into it. Was he abducted? I believe no. I believe it was more of that whole. It's a whole long story. But when his father, Jonathan Spiers, and I went to Canada. We just decided we'd go to Canada. We were both very young. I think I was, 19. And his dad is an interesting and amazing fellow. Anyway, we drove across Canada, and we stayed in Nelson. Now, years and years later, I told Max this, because I was telling him about the bed that you could switch on and it did a massage. And he said, Mom, you stayed in Nelson? And I said, yeah, it meant nothing to me. So, there's bits and pieces that Max and I were trying to put together, and sadly, I can't go any farther with him because he's not here. But I do believe, let me just say one last thing, I do believe there's a big fight going on over there, up there, down there, wherever it is. And I do believe that Max is involved in that. I think we're at a pivotal point in life and earth.
Oh, so you agree that like we're in some kind of spiritual warfare?
Oh God, yes.
Yeah,
And
that's
Max,
quite evident.
And Max is still fighting from the other side, you believe, for humanity?
I don't believe it. I know it.
That's amazing. I truly believe that as well. I really do.
Thank you.
Did you have a question? I mean, maybe he was the one who arranged this today. Maybe because something kept telling me to get a hold of you. Like something was telling me to reach out to you, and we tried to do this like 3 times and it didn't work out, and we even had trouble connecting today. But I was such a big fan of your son's work. Like he was such a important, pivotal person in our community. Like I truly believe that. He kind of laid the groundwork for people to do what I'm doing right now, so like there's that. Did you have a question?
Thank you, Robert.
Well, I'm sorry, Vanessa, would you like to speak? Because I can wait. If you had something you had to say.
Yeah, I think that we 3 could speak for hours. But I think we've established that we're on the same ground. And I know that he's fighting for us, and I know you 2 are as well. And thank God we made it. I told you 3 times charm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, we're all in this together, Vanessa, and yeah, we are fighting a spiritual war, and that's the reason why they target us. And Max was one of the first people to go public and to talk about this and kind of bring it more to the mainstream. So he did a lot to contribute to that. I just wanted to ask you,
Nate.
You're absolutely welcome, and thank you for coming on.
My final thought is that this is my closing thought. He should never have gone to Poland. Poland is a dark place, and there's so much to it all that I don't know. But anyway, the thing is, he's still fighting the fight, and I am here, and I will never stop.
I have a question for you, Vanessa. When did all of this start to come out with your son? I mean, when did he start to express these things to you, like memories and so forth, or experiences? And what was your first impression in just hearing all this? Because, I try to talk to family members and I observe how they respond. It's always, they're they're just not fit for the discussion. You seem to be somebody much, much more adept in handling this, which is a very positive thing for your son. And I'm glad he had you. But what was it like hearing these things for the first time? And when exactly did that happen? And I'll let you go from there and answer.
Yeah, I'm going to close with this, Nate, because I would say I have this image of Max, age 6, and him talking to me about things. Smart kid, but very interested in extraterrestrial, and also, he came running back from, we lived in the country, he came running back from a graveyard where he'd just gone for a Christmas pie and said, a ghost. And I said, okay, it's all right, you saw a ghost, it's fine. So I accepted all of it, and we talked openly. Remember, he was my firstborn son. I had no other children till Becky 10 years later. So for 10 years, Max was my boy. Well, he was always my boy. And no, I accepted Max as he was smart, but it's not about how clever he was. It's that he was tuned in to something, and he would say, well, Mum, what was the ship you went on? You went on the Queen Mary? When? What was it called? He used to bring to my mind things I had not thought of. So, yeah, I think since he was born, Nate, and I said I want him by my bed, 1976. Or do you want him in the nursery? No, I want him by my bed. Woke up in the middle of the night. Oh gosh, he was gone. I ran down that corridor in the hospital in London, and I said, where is my baby? And there he was in the nursery. So, stories and stories.
That's bad. At least you have really good memories of him, and like I think his legend will live on forever. I can tell you this, that we definitely haven't forgot about him in this community. I think everybody still holds him in high regard for. Even if people didn't believe in his theories 100%, they respected him as a truth seeker, because at the end of the day, that's what we all are. We're all truth seekers, like because we feel like our truth's been taken from us, right? So we want to come to this conclusion as to what's our real history, what's the government lying to us about extraterrestrials for, why do they have reverse engineered crap, all that stuff, you know what I mean?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, no, I do. And it's not saying, everything he said was magic. It's saying he was fighting and trying, as you are. That's what it's about.
I agree. Well, I don't have any other questions. Did you have any other questions, Nate?
No, I think we can close. I'm exhausted, and that was a lovely chat. Thank you, guys.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Vanessa, and thank you so much.
Thank you, Vanessa, for coming
on. We did it. We did do it. I'll keep in touch. Thank you so much.
All
right. Bye.
Take care.
That was amazing. Like that, I thought that we can talk about it for 5 minutes. Like, do you want to, or what do you?
Yeah. Let's do a conclusion. I would have hoped to have gotten a final word from her, though, but it seems like this took a lot out of her, and it's not a good thing to push somebody who's already going through a lot of grief anyway. Because this is the kind of pain that doesn't go away. You lose a grandparent. It's if you lose your parents, your grandparents, that hurts. But there's there's a special connection between a mother and a child. So I I can completely understand why this was exhausting for her, and I hope that she feels better.
I hope so too.
Hope
I
she
just
gets some
keep wondering,
peace.
like that, like all this stuff that we talk about. I wonder, like, I hope that as I was listening to her talk, I was thinking about my own mother, and I was like, I hope that's not my mom someday, because like the decisions I'm making now, bringing this information forward. But I
Yeah.
wasn't anywhere deep into it as Max was. Like Max was way deeper, and I'll tell you what, when people go after the chomos, that's when it seems to. Do you know what I'm talking about by that word? Like
No, I
people
never heard that one before. What is it? Chomo?
yeah,
What is that?
when people go after the child molesters,
Oh, okay,
they seem to
gotcha.
get taken out. Like when you go
Yeah.
after that group, it seems to like, and if you heard her say that, she said that's what he was investigating.
There's also another factor here too. Knowing how this Project Surrogate works a little bit, from what my understanding of it, is that they create a placeholder in society. Well, they'll abduct you for the first time, then you become the placeholder, which is what I call it. It's like the petri dish of the soul that they keep in society. They can re-abduct and refracture whatever they want to do. And there's likely another reason, or more than one reason, as to why it has to be done that way. But at some point though, they replace that placeholder, and it could just be that. It could have been a combination of that and what he was doing. I'm sure it was, because it usually all factors in. So if you're going after because I mean, as of late, this has been more in the news lately because of that movie. What's the name of that movie, Rob?
Freedom.
The Sound of Freedom. Okay, so that's bringing to light what's been going on for a very long time, and we're finding out that the intelligence agencies are involved in this and involved in covering it up, if not orchestrating some of it, and how it's being used to blackmail politicians, but it's being used for other things as well, more horrific things than that. And they don't want this out, and this is one of the things. And this brings in, I mean, this brings into question everybody that's in power if they're involved in something like this. It undermines the continuity of the shadow government that's controlling things. So they will definitely target you for that, probably more so than any of the other subjects within this umbrella. But like I said, it also could have been just the removal and replacement of a placeholder, which, and ultimately everybody that's in these programs needs to be set free at some point. And I sincerely hope that happens soon.
Yeah. I'm just like really, I'm kind of lost for words. I feel so bad for what she went through,
Yeah, I can feel it right in my throat.
It's like, wow. It's kind of lost for words, and I'm never lost for words, like, I mean, like, I thought that was interesting though, that he's been seeing UFOs since he was a kid, like he was, he had experiences, or not experiences, but he was seeing UFOs right when she said he would look out the window with binoculars. I thought that was fascinating.
I had a similar background in my childhood too, right around the same age. And I contribute, well, what I contribute that to, or what I connected to, is the abduction at age 6. They usually get you between 6 and 7. That usually seems to be the rule. And that can also too spark your interest. And I think that's what happened with me. I don't think Max had a long enough period of time and had the opportunity to get to the bottom as to whether he was abducted or not. And we really can't say for sure. His mother didn't think so, but I didn't think so either. And normally that goes along with this. They at least do it one time or more throughout your childhood, usually around 6 or 7. And that could have been the reason, like I said, that it would spark his interest. But then, of course, he's seeing them as well, which is another phenomena. I went through a period of time in my life before I knew anything, before I had any open, direct contact. I had psychic experiences. Things were said to me that were unusual, but, like instant spontaneous telepathy. Someone will say something to me, and you wonder, what is that? Is it an angel? What is it? A demon? What is it? But, you have these experiences, and then like what I was saying, I started to see UFOs for a period of time. There was a couple of years, like 2 or 3 years, where I would just simply see them. And, they have the ability to tune right into you and say, okay, there's a MyLab right there. It's beneficial for our interest that he or she see our craft. and then they'll show up. And I mean, that's literally how this hive mind, collective consciousness works. And we're not privy to it because we're under a simulation. So, everything that she said, I mean, it pretty much resonated. And I know it was really difficult for her to delve into this stuff. She's had a long time, but she's had some years to process it all, but it's really difficult, especially if you're not experiencing it yourself and you're just going through your loved one going through it. So, but yeah, it seems
one thing that we were going to talk about that people don't know, like Nate and I had an hour-long conversation before this podcast about and one thing that I brought up was the stuff that people don't see that we go through I'm not a SSP experiencer. I'm not an abductee, but just because I do these podcasts and I talk about this, your whole life's affected. I can't date normal girls. I have to date girls who are into the paranormal. I can't get a normal job because if they look at my job history, they'll think that, I'm into some weird shit. So they won't want to hire me. It's hard to make money in this field. I'm not driving around a BMW. I don't even have a car right now, so it's if people think that this is an easy field to get into and they look at it as a fun thing, it's not fun. I mean, it is fun. I love doing podcasts. I love interviewing people, but you don't understand the toll that it takes on your life. And then Nate's a step further where he has to deal with that stuff, but then he's been in the programs as well. So just everybody keep that in mind. And that's kind of what we were talking about, right, Nate?
That is what we were talking about. And it is something I'm concerned about because I have to go back into the job market with a disability on top of all this stuff coming out and all it would take is a Google search to pull up my name. And a lot of people will change their name. They will use a different last name to help kind of curb that problem. But I mean, if somebody wants to dig these days, you can find anything on anyone. And it definitely will affect your life. It affects your relationships. And you say that you don't have you're not an experiencer. Yeah, I didn't think I was either. It wasn't until I hit about age 48. I mean, I was experiencing things, but I didn't think I had anything to do with these people who were going through these MyLab programs. I had no idea. And it was just, it was here I am in it and not realizing it. And that's the game that they play with you. So I wouldn't be so sure of that because something's driving you, Rob, to make this personal sacrifice. Otherwise, you'd be out chasing the almighty dollar, just like everybody else. So something's there telling, there's a burning desire inside to do this for no real payoff, just misery. You're getting psychically attacked. You're not making the money that you need to make to support yourself. And I didn't know you didn't have a car right now. That's really bad. I'm sorry to hear
I
that.
lost it a couple of years ago. So I don't even talk about it because it's that's why it happened with Uber. I took an Uber for $13. They took $96 out of my account. It was hilarious. It wasn't funny. I just shut down my debit card and filed a dispute. But it's stuff like this as I was talking about. I had my Spotify monetization turned off and I lost accounts and this stuff happens to you. And then you start to think that you're crazy, but you're not crazy because then you start to put it together and you're like, well, why would they pick to target me? And I'm not saying I'm targeted. I don't know for sure, but it does seem weird, right? It seems weird that all this stuff starts happening once you start doing this stuff. It's
a matter of cause and effect, Rob. You're doing something that's bringing it on. They're not going to just let you do this. They don't want people like yourself to go out and talk to people like myself, like Max's mother and others, and then give them a platform to speak without filtering it. And there's a lot of podcasters out there that play it safe. I had a podcaster that's pretty successful, 100,000 subscribers. And I reached out to this person and I said, would you like to interview me? Because I don't get any requests. I've only had one and that never actually came to fruition. But, I was told flat out after two emails, you can't say anything bad about the U.S. military or the government. Well, if that's the case, then and that's what it takes to be successful, then what's the point? This isn't just this isn't about tarot cards and crystals. This is about real people suffering and something horrific that's happening to every one of us, regardless if you're in a program or if you're a parent of somebody who is a child, a friend, or you're just doing a podcast and you want to do the right thing. You're all everyone's involved and everyone's getting hurt by this.
Well, it's like, and it's like this time, I think we're all called to this now because I mean, the one thing that it's not new age, this thought, but the one thing that community has right is that we are in a mass awakening. Like
Yes, we
it's
are.
not just the new agers, it's the new agers, the truthers, the UFO community, the SSP people. It's a big awakening. And even some of the mainstream people are starting to come over to our side because they realize the reality isn't what they thought it was. People are starting to wake up to the fact
Right.
that, and when we say about the government, I just want to make perfectly clear that I have total respect for the military. Like my dad was in the military. I think a lot of military people don't even know what's going on in these black ops programs. There's a big difference when we say the military and the
Right.
actual shadow government that's conducting these programs. But I have all respect for regular military service members, if that makes any sense.
It makes perfect sense. I mean, people who do this make a personal sacrifice, and they have to give up a lot of things. And other people are caught in a position where, there isn't many options where they live, maybe live in a rural community. And, going into the military is one guaranteed way to support their family, but they're willing to make the sacrifice. And that's not what, when I say the military, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about those people. I'm talking about these black budget programs where they profile people who have no conscience, no compassion, no concern for others, are willing to do anything. And they put them in these programs and they turn them into monsters, and they do these things to people like us. That's what I'm talking about. That's a distinction that needs to be made. And when it comes to the government, I'm all for, I believe in government. I think government should be used as a tool for the greater good. But unfortunately, at this point in time, that's not what's happening. We have corrupted governments all over the planet, and we have a very negative ET presence that's causing all of this. We can't govern ourselves. And that's the big issue here.
Yeah.
And it has to be called out. We have to raise the awareness. And I'm down on people who are afraid to do something, because I mean, you got 100,000 subscribers or 50, whatever you got, if you're willing to do shows about this subject matter, you got to cover this, because this is where the truth is. This is where the problem is. And we have to come together to solve this. If you're just looking to benefit yourself and, to give yourself something to do or make extra money with a podcast, you're in the wrong business, because that's not what we're here to do. And that's what one of the problems are. It's just, if we were all on the same page and we got together, worked together, and put down these differences and stop being afraid, we could get more accomplished.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, once I started waking up more and more to the truth and more to the truth, you start to realize that you have to cover these things, because it's not just stuff like this. It's like everything. It's like, like the Hawaii fires and the direct energy weapons, and like you have to have an awareness of what's going on. You can't avoid these things. And like, I don't even see anything bad in what we said today. You know what I mean? I don't see any reason why this would get taken down or anything like that. I mean, but like,
No.
like I think it's still, we shouldn't have to live with that fear either, or like censorship too. You know what I mean? Because like I mean, it's crazy.
Well, that's because people have been apathetic for so long. They've been too comfortable. And that was part of the plan, to get people comfortable, to get them to just focus on trying to make it. And then they just engineered society to make it more and more difficult to raise a family, to be able to survive. So then you get everybody focused on that pursuit of money to simply survive and make it through another week or another month or another day. And that's one of the ways that they keep all of us suppressed. If they can make us poor, we have very, very few options to do anything about what's happening to us.
Yeah. And then you don't have time to research these greater things, like, because you're worried about like how you're going to put food on the table and how you're going to survive.
Right.
So it's like very hard to like, so I don't blame people who can't research this stuff because they have to do a career or whatever. You know what I mean? I'm in a weird middle type area where I'm like, like, I don't know, I might have to find a job soon, but like right now I can do this, you know what I mean? So it's like, I don't know. It's like, it's tough, man. It's a really, but that was a really moving interview. I thought that was really good.
It was, and it needed to happen, and I hope it happens again. I think that by going out in public and having this conversation with us, I think it'll hopefully open a door where she'll feel comfortable at opening up a little bit more, maybe doing it again, because she has a lot to offer. And she can continue on a little bit of what her son was doing by just doing a few interviews and talking about it and just helping shed a little more light on what happened to him. Because there's a lot of people, a lot of questions. And I'm talking about people with real questions, not the ones that are out to debunk and so forth, because they're not helping anything. And we talked about that earlier too. There's people in the community that, they're very hard. They say slanderous things. They're very quick to accuse people of being liars. And they just simply don't understand. And like you were saying, you really need to have some intuition to be able to navigate this stuff. You also have to have compassion, and you got to be the right person, because you have to be able to emphasize with people that you don't understand and give them the benefit of the doubt and treat them with respect, and tell the whole story, not just a portion of it because it supports your agenda or your belief system. And that's the problem I see with a lot of these people. They're on the skeptical side. They have a belief system they're looking to reinforce, and they're not willing to let anything else in. And that doesn't benefit anybody. Now, sometimes they can do good things by by outing somebody who's pulling a scam, a grifter, someone who's working for an intelligence agency that's pushing out false information. So they do work like that. But I mean, it's like, what's that old saying? If all you have is a hammer to solve your problems, and everything has to look like a nail, so you're willing to just smash the hell out of everything and not give it any second thought. It's all collateral damage. That's something that we need to curtail that, but it really depends on the people doing it. I hope they come around. And I hope the things like Courtney Brown's doing at the Farsight Institute, like we talked about too, is to show people that, the ETs are real and they're here, and you can film them in infrared, and this is a big cover up. So I think if we can get to that point where that's recognized, I think maybe we can meet in the middle someplace and start treating each other a little bit better, because now we've gotten proof that this is real for those people who haven't been exposed to it, or who, just simply don't believe it because of religious reasons or just the social programming. But we need to get to that baseline reality where we all accept that they're here, and something needs to be done about it, because they're not here for our best interest. That's when we can start addressing these programs more, because, what we've got right now is a controlled disclosure. And there's some people out there, I would say Eric Hecker, I listened to his interview. He was on Redacted, I believe, and I thought that was a very good interview. I don't think people like that are the ones being motivated by the intel agencies to talk. I think these are just regular people who see the opportunity, to tell their story, and they have a good, legitimate story to tell. I didn't notice any deception with him. But, the other ones you got to kind of question. It's like, because we're not hearing anything new. We're just hearing what Stephen Greer's been talking about for years. We're just rehashing the Roswell incident. I mean, really, all these years later, we're still at this point where we're just kind of establishing that maybe Roswell happened, when we've got evidence, like from the Farsight Institute, for example, that sheds a completely different light on things. And
Well, no, I think the reason why that is because it's been covered up for so long, right? Because it's been so taboo to look at, and people have been literally killed over it, right? Like, it's like,
and they're still being killed over it, Rob, but it's being done differently. You've had Eve Lorgan on there, and you have, James, and you've had that conversation where you talked about people like Carla Turner being killed and others. And, it's still going on today. And another thing too, I mean, for every person that goes public about this, and they're called wackadoos, they're called crackpots, liars, grifters, and everything else. They put labels on us because they're afraid that we're right. And for every one that goes public, there's thousands of people who aren't going public. If not, it could be at least hundreds of people. And I've talked to people who've contacted me. There was a wave of people that contacted me for a period of time, and then it kind of slacked off. But there were people that would never go public because they were afraid of the repercussions of it. And, when people contact you and they say, I'm afraid to go public, but this is what's happened to me, and you get it enough, you get to the point where you realize this is much bigger than anybody could ever have imagined. And these alien abductions that people talk about are more than just being taken. It's a long-term abduction process that happens with a lot of the people involved in it. They're taken, their minds, their souls are fractured, and they're put into these programs, and they're not all super soldiers. They can be used for a variety of things.
I remember, I mean, just the research of David Jacobs, and I would say his research is a little bit old school now. But I mean, I remember when he was on Art Bell, he said that like some of his abductees, he said abductees have like 3 or 4 abductions a week. Like, can you imagine that? Like not being able to get any sleep and like, I mean, that's what he said. He said that they have an insane amount of abductions per year. Like, you know, like
Some can have that, others are less. Yeah. And we have to look back at these older researchers, because there seems to have been less manipulation at the level we got now than there was back then. And I think, we need to go back to the old stuff, and we need to look at how that research was done. And we need to be a little bit more stringent with what we're doing now, and more careful, because there's a lot more manipulation at a subconscious level. There's you have the censorship and social media, which we didn't have. And so, they've upped their game against us, but we have to look at these older researchers, because they've got a lot of answers that we need to ground ourselves in. We just can't call that passe and move forward. Because there's a lot of things. I mean, the reason I like Eve Lorgan, well, I like her as a person, but the research that she's done is very groundbreaking work. And it can't be forgotten. It needs to be in the forefront, because we're dealing with this right now. Things are heating up, and we need to have more discussions like that online. We need to network together, and we need to do better. We need to try harder, because there's an event coming. We all seem to be feeling it, and we're all unsure as to what it is. But I think everything that we do leading up to that event is going to prepare everyone for it.
I agree. Well, I got to do another show, but this was amazing, Nate. I'll send you a copy of it. I'm going to probably post it today or tomorrow, probably tomorrow.
Yeah. And I just want to thank Vanessa for coming on, and for being brave, and for being a loving mother, and for standing by her son like she did.
Well said. I agree.
And she still stands by him, which is extremely important. So I think the takeaway here, if there's anybody out there who has a child, or a friend, or maybe a parent, and you need to support that person who's going through this. Don't discount what they're saying. Be open and listen to them. Of course, I'm preaching in the choir here, because none of these people are going to be seeing this podcast. But if they ever do, I just want people to know that we're real. We're going through this, and we need all the help we can get to get through it. So when somebody, if this just sounds crazy to you, and somebody close to you, or just a friend comes to you and confides in you about these things, please listen, and please be understanding.
I agree. That's well said. I guess we'll close up there. Do you want to tell everybody where they can find you, Nate, or what?
Yeah, you can find me at Haujean Contactee channel here on YouTube. I've got BitChute and Rumble, which is the Voices of Orion project. If you go to BitChute, they're shadow banning me in the title search. You can't put spaces in. I'm one of the only channels I've ever tested that you can take the spaces out. Well, you can find it if you take the spaces out.
Shadow banning,
right? But when they're not supposed to be shadow banning, but their infrastructure doesn't allow it. So apparently somebody got to them. This is my hypothesis here. I've complained about this. Somebody got to them, either the Canadian government or US government, and said, we want you to shadow ban certain people. And they're like, well, we don't have the money to do this. And so they came up with a patch, I guess you could call it, to where they require everyone who sets up an account now, if it's multiple words, to take the spaces out. You can't do one with spaces. That way they can shadow ban you by a title search, because then if you don't put the spaces in, you don't show up. If you take the space, so when I say go look the Voices of Orion project up on BitChute, it should come up if you type it out as a phrase, but it doesn't. I'm the only one that I've tested that has that problem. I've looked at other channels, and I wondered why they didn't allow you to put spaces in when they used to do it. It just makes it harder to find a channel. But now I think I know. And Rumble's another one. They don't really like this content being on there. They want politics, self-help, how to, do it yourself stuff, and just nonsense clips. They don't want this type of material on their platform. And unfortunately, that's where we're going to have to go, because YouTube's kicking us off. I can't even go to one. I mean,
you can test this out yourself. It may just be me that they're targeting, but I don't think it is. If you go to any one of these whistleblower videos or anywhere on YouTube, I've tested this out elsewhere too. I went to a do-it-yourself video and I put in, just as a test, I'm a MyLab victim, Joint Draco ET U.S. military abduction victim under Project Ibis. Please check out my channel. I've tested that phrase out and other variations of it, and the AI takes it down no matter where you post it. It isn't just the videos about the whistleblowers. They just don't want you talking about that at all, and they'll shadow ban your videos. But it's a little harder for them with their guidelines and everything to take your videos down and just declare nobody's going to talk about this. But they do have this clause in their community guidelines, which targets, what do they call it? Dangerous conspiracy theories, So this is apparently one of them. But my question is to them is, if we're all crazy, then what's the worry? If we're crazy fringe people, we're not really getting much coverage anyway. What's the worry? Why would you want to censor us? Why would you shadow ban us if it's not true? If there's not a core of truth to this, they wouldn't be doing these things. They're giving themselves away. And by what they censor, that gives away partially their agenda. You can't base it on what they're censoring, but you can look and kind of get an idea. If I go to the Cosmic Switchboard channel, James Bartley, he'll have 8,000 views and he's got no comments. So I leave a comment. I'm first, right? I leave a comment. I say I'm first. It's kind of funny. There's no other comments. And then I sign out or have somebody take a look at it. They can't see my comment. If I sign out, I can't see it. If I sign back in, it's there. So there's probably dozens, if not a couple hundred comments under one of his videos, but nobody can see one another. Why do they want to stop us from talking about this? It's because it's real. And whether they know it is or not, they may be told, well, they're probably told nothing, just censor these people. But somebody's programming these algorithms. Somebody's got to be thinking. So what are they thinking? What is the reasoning? We're a threat to national security because we're crazy and we could go off. So let's squelch their ability to spread this craziness. And we know that the government's keeping an eye on these wackadoos because they're dangerous, which is utter BS to start with. And because we all know when there's somebody out there who's planning on doing something horrific to the public, like a mass shooting, it seems as if they have no problem doing it. All of the checks, all of the balances, all the fail safes, just like these fires in Maui, never seem to kick in and prevent it from happening. It seems like the doors are wide open, and that's, you can see that same pattern in this community with people's testimony. If there's somebody putting out false information, they have no problem getting their story out, but they will target people who they don't want to speak, and they will kill them if they say too much, or if they just speak in general and they don't want them talking. Yeah. It is what it is, man. It's a bad situation. It's unfortunate, but and she's right. There's an awakening going on, and they're trying to stop it. That's what all this is about. They can't stop it, but they're trying to, and we're the casualties of it.
Yeah, that's really well said. And we'll leave it off for today. And we got another show coming up in September. So yeah, thanks, Nate. And we've been on the computer for 2 hours because this didn't work out right away. We were waiting for Vanessa to get a hold of us, and then so I got another show at 7:00. I got to get ready for.
Yeah, right. And you weren't feeling too good either. So you got that engineered fatigue syndrome. Yeah. It's like it kind of kicks in at a very suspicious times. Yeah. All right. Well, I'll talk to you soon, Nate. Thanks. And thanks everybody, and check me out, all that stuff. All right. Thanks, guys.